Well, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Dear Grazel, Sangeeta, Misma, Berta, and all the distinguished ladies. Hi. I'm tremendously honored to meet all the participants of the BRICS Business Forum 2020 and our session dedicated BRICS Business Women Alliance. I'm chairperson of the Russian chapter of the BRICS Women's Alliance. As we all know, our world has changed. The COVID-19 pandemic affects everyone everywhere. It is not only challenging global health system, but it is testing our common humanity. So I really hope that you and your family are healthy and safe. Today, the question of women's contribution to economic welfare has become more relevant than ever before. Women are believed to be at the center of economic recovery in the post-COVID-19 era. According to the World Health Organization, women make up 70% of health and social services workers worldwide, being currently at the forefront of the fight against coronavirus infection. Moreover, the annual contribution of women to the global health sector is estimated at $3 trillion. Undoubtedly, the contribution of women in the fight against the pandemic and its consequence is enormous. At the same time, female entrepreneurship has become a significant part of global business, and its development is considered to be one of the most promising drivers of the economic growth. In BRICS, the development of women entrepreneurship and equal employment is also an important part of the economic agenda. There are almost 3 billion people living in BRICS countries, and approximately 1.5 billion of them are women. I'm sure that our BRICS government will put women at the center of their efforts to recover from COVID-19 pandemic. Let's start with women as leaders, with equal representation and decision-making power. Still, the role of women in the economy is underestimated. Women of the 5 BRICS countries face wage inequalities and earn, on average, 24% less than a man. Obstacles to women entrepreneurship in BRICS countries also include barriers in accessing professional training, information, networks, and especially credit and financing. According to the above stated, measures to protect and stimulate economy from cash transfers to credit and loans must be targeted at women. Social safety nets must be expanded. Unpaid care work must be recognized and valued as a vital contribution to the economy. At the same time, the share of women running their own business in BRICS countries amounts to about 30%, whereas the same indicator in the world accounts on average 20%. The importance of creating female cooperation mechanism in BRICS is underprinted by the fact that currently the main mechanism for developing business cooperation between BRICS countries now is BRICS Business Council, which is an effective tool for establishing international partnership primarily for the large business. Female entrepreneurs of the BRICS countries, however, are mainly honored small, medium, and micro-sized businesses. Access to international market for that businesses can be often considered as a difficult task. The idea of creating Women's Business Alliance was proposed in Russia in 2017. We are very honored that in 2020, the first alliance-related events are being held in the framework of the Russian BRICS chairmanship, and we would like to thank our Brazilian, Indian, South Africa, and Chinese colleagues for their continuous support. Today, we invite highly respected guests who will represent the corresponding countries in the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. And first of all, before we start our discussion, I would like to give the floor to our representative of the Ministry of Economic Development of the Russian Federation, Ms. Natalia Strigunova is Deputy Director of the Department of Multilateral Economic Cooperation and Special Project in this ministry. Please, Natalia, the floor is yours. You can speak English, or if you prefer, you can speak Russian, whatever you want. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me? Is it okay? Yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, distinguished guests, it's my honor and pleasure today to greet on behalf of the Ministry of Economic Development of the Russian Federation, all the participants and organizers of the meeting of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance and BRICS Business Forum. Women entrepreneurship has always been one of the most efficient engines of economic growth. But nowadays, in these challenging times, women entrepreneurs carry out a great mission to become a real driver of post-pandemic economic recovery all over the world. This is a unique and responsible task for BRICS business women. New female projects contribute to mitigating negative impacts of COVID-19 pandemic, such as unemployment, social insecurity, lack of confidence in future. Women economic empowerment is one of the key issues of the BRICS economic agenda. In view of this, we consider the launch of the practical activities of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance especially relevant and timely. Let me thank our chair, Ms. Anna Nesterova, who is a real heart and engine of this initiative, for her great work being done with inspiration together with our BRICS partners to make the dream of alliance come true. It is of key importance that in Russia, the alliance has been supported and facilitated since the very beginning by the most authoritative state and legislative bodies. We are very grateful to the Council of Federation of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation and the Council of Eurasian Women Forum for considerable support of this project. Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation made a valuable and really decisive contribution to creation of the alliance, negotiating all the necessary issues consistently through the channels of Sherpas and sous-Sherpas. We greet our South African colleagues and friends who joined the alliance, and we are proud that now all the 5 member states participate actively. Let me express confidence that the alliance would in fact become a window of new opportunities and action strategies for the benefit of all BRICS women. Female business would give a strong impetus to BRICS multilateral economic cooperation, initiate new win-win projects, share best practices to unleash women economic potential, and support women in post-pandemic recovery states for inclusion of such respected and experienced business women, representing the most significant sectors of economy in the national parts of the alliance. And we strongly hope that in the near future, the BRICS economic agenda would be enriched by mutually beneficial multilateral projects and initiatives in digital economy, food industry, new technologies and innovations, creative industries, services, and other sectors. I wish all members of the alliance and participants of the BRICS Business Forum fruitful cooperation and fresh ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Natalia. Thank you for that you support and you proposed this initiative, your ministry and the business community. And, without your support, I'm not sure if the alliance will be, today with us, and you are also. So thank you very much. You was the first ladies, I think, in this ministry who suggested the creation, the establishment of BRICS Business Women Alliance. And I want to thank you for your support, for that you work very close with us, and today you are here. So I think this is our common goal, this is our common initiative with our partners from China, from Brazil and South Africa and India. So thank you very much once again. Let me hand this over to my Brazilian colleague, Ms. Graziel Parenti, Corporate Relation Global Director of BRF, one of the biggest food companies in the world. Dear Brazil. Could you please indicate what is the current situation with the presence of women in the corporate and entrepreneurship world in Brazil? Which sectors of the economy provide more opportunities and what remains to further work on it? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, dear Anna. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening for my colleagues in China. I am so glad that we are here representing Brazil in this BRICS initiative. I'm also be here partnering with Andrea that will follow my presentation here. So today we are going to bring here some data about what is the current situation in Brazil regarding the women empowerment. Next slide, please. So, is it moving, the slides for you guys? I still see this. Okay, so the women represents a little bit more than half of the Brazilian population, so 51.8. But there is a lot to do yet. Of course, me and Andrea here, we are still very few women in top leadership positions in the corporate world. But also, we had some data here regarding the presence of women in the private sector and the public sector. So unemployment is higher for women. And there is a special thing that we have to mention regarding the post-pandemic world, you know, so this is really critical. So the women income is in average 21% below men. And this is something that we cannot really cope on. This is something that we really have to change. So 34% of the small and medium companies in Brazil are owned by women. And but the important point is that they created these companies not because they see a business opportunity, you know, something to pursue, but as a need. You know, we know this very old expression of the glass ceiling, and this still has. So women sometimes quit the corporate world to run their business, to have more flexibility. But in fact, this is really an important point. So regarding leadership, senior leadership, we see 34% in average. You know, the numbers change a little bit. But senior leadership doesn't mean the board. We are talking about managers up, and the CEOs we still see like 13%. So it's really a low number. There are numbers saying that in the board, like the top leadership team in the companies, you see about 20%, but it's in average. Some sectors we have more. Some sectors like consumer goods, you have more presence. Others you see less. And in the boards, exactly, being in the boardrooms, we see like 8.6%. So it's a really low number. It's a figure below 10%. And when you take out all the familiar connections, so daughters, wives, and all that, you see about 4% of independent boardrooms in the board women. So it's really a low number. And also this figure just popped up yesterday. So after the pandemic, we see for the lowest rate of women employed in 13 years. So in 30 years, we are seeing about 46.3. And there are many, and my point in my presentation here is to bring the data and make some questions for us in our plan to try to address in the better way. In the public sector, Brazil is in a very low rate about women representation. Congress, we have around 15% of women in Congress when you say, when you combine the chambers. And also we see very few women in the executive branch running like as governors, as mayors, or even as president. So there is still a lot to do on that. And that's why we have such an important role to play and see what we can do to leverage and to bring a better scenario for our daughters, our nephews, and granddaughters. Next slide, please. And so these are the questions that we brought here. So first of all, what we can do to have more women leaders. what the companies can do as policies, what we can do as big companies here and women's in leadership positions to foster other women to advance, you know, for us to be able to reach the higher positions as well. The other question is how, what we can do to have more women leading business successfully. How can we support the small entrepreneurs? How we can have more big companies running by women. That we have very few examples here in Brazil, but the small companies, we have a lot of companies running by women, but how can we support? Is it with credit? It's with training? What it's with training with digital? What we can do? My other question is what we can do to have more women in politics. There are many initiatives now in Brazil to give visibility for women that are running. We're gonna have an election in like 15 days from now for the local governments. So how can we have more women bringing, not just the women agenda, but bringing the agenda of social, of caring and all that. What we can do to have, what we can do to support young women to reach higher positions. How can we be inspiration and role modeling for the others? What we can do to develop these young women to be there. What we can do to support women after the impact of the COVID pandemic. How these women will be able to return to their jobs, because we say that there is this role of women taking care of the family and the elderly. So this is something that we are seeing, and during this tough times, how can we support that? So Anna, I'm bringing here a little bit of the scenario. Doesn't look, we should not be pessimists because we are here advancing and a lot. We are maybe the second generation in Brazil of women in corporate world, and what we can do to make, to support the youngers to have a better future on that and to really fulfill all their potential. So I hand on now to Andrea that will continue the presentation. Thank you, Andrea.
Graziel, can I ask you one question, please? You indicated that 34% women-owned SMEs in the Brazil. Could you please indicate how many women-owned SMEs are there? I mean, the amount of the company. Do you know the number of companies women-owned in Brazil?
Yeah, I can pick it up, this number for you, but it's a big number. Yeah, but I can pick it up and bring back to you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Andrea, the floor is yours. Maybe I will say a few words to present you. Our next speaker is Miss Andrea Almeida, who serves as a Chief Financial and Investment Relation Office in Petrobras. Miss Almeida, please share with us the priorities of the Brazilian chapter of the BRICS Business Women Alliance, what the Brazilian part of the alliance can do to reduce the lack of women in the sector mentioned by our previous speaker, Ms. Parenti. The floor is yours.
So maybe we can be faster here and move to, because the first slides I'm covering somehow. So first of all, good morning and good evening, everybody. So very happy to be in this group and to be discussing the very important items. We all know how important this is for us all. And it's already proved there is a positive correlation between diversity in leadership in companies and business financial performance. So it's really important that we take the time to discuss all those items here. But maybe, so I'm not going to go through that. Everybody's totally aware how important it is. Maybe moving to the next slide, I may cover the issues we face in Brazil, and I believe it is somehow relative similar in some other countries, and some of them are even worse after the crisis, as Grazielli just mentioned. So one of the items that the challenge that we have to improve female entrepreneurship and participation in business are really the double burden. We know how important culturally, we know how important women are in the care of children and education and family support. During the crisis, this was even worse. So we know how important it was for the women to be at home and help their children even be on online studying because the schools were closed. And a very important number that I think Grazielli brought us is that during the crisis, the women in workplace dropped to less than 50% in Brazil. Since 1991, this number was higher than 50%. So that's really a very important challenge we need to face. I believe confidence is another one, and we talked about it. So we still see some women lacking confidence to invest in its own business and limiting the available opportunities for its world. Networking, I believe it's important to improve the participation of women in the world of business. Networking between them could improve a lot. Access to credit, so we talked about it. It's harder for women to fulfill collateral requirements required for loans. And there is a lack of training and financial skills. So it's really even harder for them to negotiate with banking and with the financial institutions. And we know in Brazil how important it is for the small and medium-sized business for the economy. So if they can do that, that will be very important for economic growth. Role models, we know how important it is as well for young women to see more successful stories of female and good examples. This will really help on foster their willingness to invest in their careers and in new business. And unfortunately, there's still prejudice. We still have a biased world and a male-dominated environment. So if we move to next slide, we see how our countries are positioned and how we need to work towards improving that. And maybe if we move one further, we can even go to what we can do to help that. I don't know if it's moving. Maybe we move. Yeah, so this is how we see our country's position in the World Economic Forum, our economic participation, but we can move one forward. So here's how we believe we can stimulate that. And I believe this is common for our countries, but in Brazil as well. So networks like this one that we are creating can definitely improve that, because it will be a place where we can share experience and good examples. And what can we learn from one country to another. Financial education, again, it's important to stimulate, as I mentioned, training, business development, marketing of products, financial skills, really to develop the confidence to build new business and to build somehow to be interacting with the business world. Digital transformation, we know how important it is to support innovation and new technologies and digital tools to help the connection between women in business. Public policies and representation, I believe we talked about that. So creating a better infrastructure of full-time schools, kindergarten, to allow women to be able to work and then to decide if they want to become leaders. I think that's the first step, is to be able to work. We know how important in our countries and in Brazil to have less tax impacting on personnel costs, to improve employment as a whole and employment of women. And we know how important it is to build that into public policies of creating this kind of infrastructure. But we know it's hard because we don't have a lot of women politicians to influence those public policies as well. So in one of the studies, and this is not just for Brazil, but we're united and the focus on that, because I think we still have in the world a lot of investments and attention being taken to avoid violence against women. So United Nations pointed that 71% of measures being taken are still related to gender, are still to avoid violence against women, while only 10% is to help support women financial conditions and the overall environment to grow business. So these are things that we can start helping with this group. And we know, if we go to another slide again, we know how important it is. And maybe just mentioning a recent study from McKinsey that pointed out that this crisis that we are living right now affected 1.8 times more the jobs of women than men. And in the whole world, women represent 39% of the workplace globally, but responded during the crisis to 54% of people that lost their jobs. So we really need to concentrate our best efforts to build a better world. Even after the crisis, this becomes even more important. And definitely all we are doing here, it will be contributing for economic growth and the transformation that we need in our countries. I think that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Ms. Andrea. I'm completely agreed with what you said. And I'd like to switch on Russia to present my colleague. Для меня большая честь представить слово моей коллеги из России, Ольги Белявцевой, председателю правления компании «Прогресс Капитал», которая является лидером в индустрии детского питания. Уважаемая Ольга, укажите и скажите, пожалуйста, в каких сферах сотрудничества вы готовы работать с нашими партнерами по БРИКС? Какие перспективы сотрудничества в рамках наших стран вы видите? Пожалуйста, слово вам.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Доброго времени суток. Я рада поприветствовать женский состав БРИКС от своего имени. И, слушая выступления уважаемых коллег, думала, как построить свою речь. Мы были подготовлены к сегодняшней встрече. У нас похожие проблемы в части статистики, в части отношения к женщинам и в части сложных ситуаций, связанных с ковид. Здесь мои коллеги приводили статистику из McKinsey, исследований. Я вчера, когда готовилась к выступлению, тоже просматривала эти материалы. И что я увидела, что действительно вопрос экосистемы всей, которая сейчас происходит на фоне всех сложных ситуаций с ковид, очень важен. И что мы видим? Так как мы находимся в сфере производства детского питания, мы занимаем огромную долю на рынке. Это большое количество женщин, детей, материнство и детство ложится в основу нашего бизнеса. Мы понимаем, что 80% женщин принимают решения в части создания семьи и каких-то сложных ситуаций. И когда формировалась команда, я очень долго думала, входить в состав БРИКС или не входить. Это очень ответственная зона. И встречалась с разными коллегами, мы увидели, что обратная связь от женщин такая, что они приходят за советом и говорят, а что нам нужно делать? Нам действительно не хватает информационного пространства. Мы действительно в какой-то части не защищены, в какой-то части, простите. Мы хотели бы чуть глубже погружаться в какие-то международные опыты, и действительно площадка, нетворкинг и все, что с этим связано, для нас очень важны. Поэтому мы, когда смотрим на исследования McKinsey, что мы видим? Что из-за высокой потребности в эмоциональном интеллекте и креативных навыках наиболее приспособленными в работе будущего являются женщины. Об этом в ходе своего выступления на форуме «Открытые инновации» говорил руководитель, заявил директор McKinsey Джонатан Ветцель. Скорее всего, это будут женщины, а не мужчины, которые будут более адаптивны. И, скорее всего, это будет более высокий образовательный ценз, особенно с образованием не в формате университета. И также он подчеркнул, что женщины в этом ключе сыграют огромную роль. И мне кажется, наш альянс, он сможет, наверное, подсказать нам правильные пути от нашего общения, чем мы сможем помогать женщинам. Мы очень заинтересованы в том, чтобы обмениваться современными практиками. Мы также понимаем, что в бизнесе женщине очень сложно выживать даже на высоком уровне, наверное, даже не выживать, а донести свои потребности, возможности, потому что все-таки мужской шовинизм достаточно сильный в этой зоне, и нам приходится большие усилия в этом прилагать. Поэтому Мы бы хотели на этой площадке обмениваться всеми нашими успехами и вашими успехами, и нам весьма интересно это сотрудничество. Что я хочу сказать про свой бизнес и свои интересы? Так как мы производим baby-food, мы понимаем, что уже наш бизнес стал настолько большой, и мы готовы поделиться. Мы понимаем, что уровень рождаемости в каждых странах разный, и нам важно подчеркнуть, что наша компания, которая производит детское питание, оно ложится в основу качества жизни ребенка. Когда мы начинаем смотреть на эту зону, понимаем, что все другие страны, мы готовы поделиться этим опытом, готовы сказать какие-то мировые стандарты, которые мы можем взять в практику свою и с вами поделиться. То есть у нас очень много возможностей на сегодняшний день, которые мы могли бы разрабатывать и выпускать отдельные проекты. У нас есть также проекты в агросекторах. Мы понимаем, что в России очень востребована тема органического питания, качества жизни. Мы тоже готовы в этих проектах работать. Это, наверное, несколько небольших ремарок о бизнесе, которые мы могли бы анонсировать, предлагать и обсуждать все эти вещи. И действительно, женское население очень незащищенная часть, несмотря на то, что в России очень много делается для этого. При всем при том, мы очень рады и воодушевлены, что правительство российское очень поддерживает в этом вопросе в части создания БРИКСа и нам оказывает в этом огромную поддержку. Наверное, я, может быть, немного волнуюсь, это мое первое выступление в таком составе, поэтому я хотела бы поблагодарить всех коллег за внимание, и мы готовы к активному сотрудничеству. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое, Ольга. Коллеги, я позволю себе здесь немножко отклониться от регламента и прокомментировать выступление Ольги. На самом деле, как Ольга отметила, это действительно очень большой труд возглавлять крупнейшую в России компанию по производству детского питания, которая занимает самую большую долю рынка. Это действительно качественная, серьезная продукция, но я не буду сейчас углубляться в какое-то продвижение кого бы то из нас ни было. Я хочу сделать акцент на том, что работа на руководящем посту и возможность найти время между семьей, такой ответственной работой и общественной деятельностью не только для Ольги, но, наверное, для каждой из присутствующих сегодня здесь подключенных женщин, которые входят в состав нацчасти, это действительно очень большая и очень серьезная ответственность. И я хочу поблагодарить всех вас, я хочу сказать спасибо лично Ольге, я хочу сказать спасибо каждой из женщин, которая согласилась, взяла на себя в какой-то части эту миссию для того, чтобы наши дети, для того, чтобы наши в будущем внуки смогли воспользоваться и использовать те наработки, которые мы сегодня с вами закладываем в части международной кооперации, сотрудничества женского бизнеса, возможности поделиться действительно успешными практиками и ролевыми моделями, которые должны стать примером и лечь в основу других подрастающих поколений, девочек, девушек, уже взрослых где-то женщин, которым где-то не хватает действительно этого образа и нашей с вами поддержки. Поэтому для меня, опять-таки, большая честь представлять сегодня всех женщин, которые будут выступать. Еще раз спасибо вам большое. And now I'd like to give the floor to our Indian colleagues. India will assume the BRICS presidency in 2021. So my congratulations to you. We really hope that by that time our countries will cope with the consequences of the pandemic and we will be able to meet all of you offline personally in the next year. So our first speaker from India is Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, Joint Managing Director of Apollo Hospitals Group. Dear Sangeeta, it's very honored to me to welcome you, and I would like to ask you if you can share the Indian priorities in the BRICS Business Women Alliance. How, from your perspective, the alliance will contribute to women entrepreneurship development in the BRICS countries? Please, Sangeeta, the floor is yours.
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and namaste from India. Anna, can you all hear me? Can you hear and see me?
Yes, we're
Hello,
here. And
Anna, can you hear? Oh, okay, good. Okay, good. You can hear and see. Okay, perfect. So just moving forward, I want to first begin by saying that while there's no perfect substitute for a face-to-face dialogue, and we would have loved to have been in Russia with you for this important event, we appreciate the fact that you're using technology to connect all of us. I want to congratulate the Russian team. Anna, you personally, you've stayed in touch, you've done one-on-one meetings, you had multiple emails, and you've created this platform and made us come together with a commitment to help women all over the world, especially in our countries. And I want to congratulate you for that. Friends, we in India completed celebrating what is called Navaratri, which a week-long celebration, which actually it embodies the spirit of women empowerment and the various capabilities of women. And so I think the timing is just fantastic for us to be able to connect at this point of time. In the case of India, just, the fantastic figures were shared earlier, but I want to state with you that it is estimated that if we can bring the workforce in India up to the appropriate degree that we should, then it will add $700 billion to our economy by the year 2030. And so focusing on women is good for the community, it's good for society, it's good for the economy, and it's good for our future generations. So we are working very hard to try and ensure that this appreciation of the important role that we play is getting health crisis in our lives. The impact on women has been huge. It was stated earlier, and the same is true in India as well, that a disproportionate number of the jobs lost were jobs lost by women. And not just economically, but on the health front as well. Women have been also neglecting their own health because they are committed to serving their families and very, very busy with work. And also at the front line, the people serving the community, the nurses especially, but also sanitation workers, health workers on the ground. All of these are a higher proportion of women and therefore have put themselves at greater risk. So I think the world acknowledges the fact. And I just want to say that it's the physical, but also the mental health of women has been, very adversely affected. And very recently, we did one of our most successful conferences or programs like this on a platform, which was anxiety management for health practitioners with a special focus on women. Moving on very quickly, the Indian government also has been taking multiple measures. Not only did they try and do the food, but there was a special orientation towards giving money directly to women who were below the poverty line. And I think across the world, this aspect of recognizing that money in women's hands is money that goes into food for the family or for the children, important aspect. And the government's Atmanirbhar package, which was called, actually helped 200 million women by putting money directly into their electronic bank accounts. Moving on to what Anna has very rightly asked all of us to focus, saying what can we do together? I want to take a few examples in FICCI, in my organization, Apollo Hospitals, and maybe use some of these ideas so that we can craft some potential go-forward strategy for all of us together. The first one, which I think is extremely important, we've created this initiative, which is called the Greater 50%. Because in India, women make up only 48% of the population, but we believe that their impact is greater than 50%. So there are 5 main verticals in this. The first vertical is to ensure equality and leadership in the workforce. So we've created an initiative in partnership with Intel Corporation and many other IT firms. We create a checklist for companies. Are you women friendly? And this women-friendly initiative looks at multiple aspects, whether they're capable of, appreciating the special needs of women. Are they sensitive to the requirements during pregnancy? Are they coaching? Are they giving them an ability to make up for the gap they take during their pregnancy and early ages of childbearing to leadership positions? So it's a detailed checklist. And our aim is to ensure that we nurture or groom over 30,000 women leaders to move up the ladder. The second initiative is for marginalized women. And these are women who are at the grassroots level, who have very small, their own businesses, and they face problems of capital, of knowledge related to marketing, of being harassed, sometimes by local police, sometimes by, the local, for want of a better word, if there's a little bit of a mafia type situation, so they get harassed by those people if they're running street side shops, etc. So we are through microfinancing, finding ways to support them, and then creating key resources to come in and work with them as well in areas where they have a problem. The sensitization cell is a very friendly, multilingual mentorship program that they can easily get into. And there's multiple training for women to understand that they can appreciate that. I also want to share that FICCI has one of the largest women's organizations called FLOW, FICCI Ladies Organization. And FLOW has helped rolling this out in various states so that there, again, marginalized women, we've taken another target of 50,000 women. We should help them either start their business or grow their business. So these are entrepreneurship, women-led entrepreneurship goals, because we believe actually that it's not development of women, but it's actually women-led development. And the important aspect is that women-initiated businesses not only provide employment, are ethical in their business practices, are environment friendly, appreciate sustainability, and therefore the entrepreneurship capability of women should be encouraged level. And our central government ministry of women and child welfare is also helping us. Moving on, we have 2 other verticals. One is to help young women in STEM education. And the next one is also looking at legal protection and support for women. So we have volunteers of lawyers who help other women, whether it's in their business requirements or even in their personal, sometimes they have other related problems. Moving on to what I believe we can do, and I think digital is one of the most important and powerful tools. So here, creating a training program on IT, on new skills, on blended technologies, because as women work from home, emerging digital platforms and emerging transformational capabilities, whether it's AI, ML, Internet of Things, for women in the healthcare, Internet of Medical Things. So training programs which are global, which can be given to them, and a certification which will then help them in their career is something that I believe we should reach out to our governments as BRICS women and ask for cross-country acknowledgement of these certifications and online training programs. The next one, which I think we can do, is that we should focus on helping women get into jobs. And one of the world's biggest shortage, and here as Apollo, I understand this, is that it is estimated that there is a 16 million shortage globally of healthcare workers. So training women to become healthcare workers, especially nurses, and then getting global positions across the world. Right now, the NHS is looking for 50,000 nurses. And when one of our young women get that kind of a job, it's transformational for their whole lives and for their families because they send money back. So I think initiatives like this, which can actually impact women directly, which can go cross-border, and which because of BRICS we can work on. So I propose that we create, one is a best practice grid, because each one of you, I was enjoying hearing the great things happening in every country. Everybody is doing something fantastic. If we create a BRICS Women Alliance best practice grid that all of us can refer to as material, this may become a way to learn from each other so that we don't reinvent the wheel. The second thing which I spoke about is that we throw open digital training. And here I volunteer to take IT capability from India and create these courses which will be offered at cost-effective prices to women in our country through, which is propagated through our members. The third thing is that we can move on to the mentorship platforms. So here I will share the mentorship platform which we have created in partnership with MicroMentor, where we can help each other in skills building, B2C, vendor development, and help increase the power of the women workforce. And finally, I one of the most important things always for us to grow capital. So should we consider creating a fund which will then be given to well-established, well-run venture funds, but say that this should be reserved for women? And so we can increase the power and the capacity of existing funds by channelizing or creating more dedicated funds or women-focused fund. So we can ideate a bit more on this. I want to thank all of you for this opportunity. I think that together we all get stronger, and business, economic, and policy transformation is critical as women leaders must emerge as role models and grow the ecosystem where women entrepreneurship gets a strong boost. The road ahead is not easy, and the pandemic has not been gender neutral. However, the long existing inequalities and the social disparities have sharpened along the gender lines in access to resources, food, education. So leaders like us must come together, and I acknowledge and congratulate BRICS and the leadership from our Russia team and the Women's Business Alliance, so that we can come together to empower and strengthen women across the world. And by strengthening women, we actually strengthen the entire society and the world. So I want to thank all of you for this opportunity and look forward to welcoming you to India. I eagerly look forward to staying in touch, to interacting, and to working further with each and every one of you so that we can make some good impact for the world. Thank you very much. And my regards to you, Anna, and to all sisters from across the world. And namaste.
Thank you very much, Sangeeta. I have 2 comments after your speech. First of all, I'd like to thank you. I feel how you inspired. And I don't know how to say it in English, but I ask our translator in Russia. It looks like «У меня мурашки по коже после вашего выступления». And the second comment, am I right understood that you suggested to establish the common fund, the fund of BRICS Business Women Alliance, where each country will, give some money, and we can use these funds to help other women in our countries, to support them, to empower them, to establish their own business. Am I right? Because am I right to understand? Because this is very, very serious, very, good suggestion, and I think we can work closer on your suggestion.
I think it's important because we strengthen the society when we're able to give capital in the right place. And while we need not re-replicate the mechanisms of finding the right business, we can take a well-established fund, but we should reach out to our governments, to the World Bank, to many common associations and alliances, and even to large companies that have startup funds. and say, why don't you put this for a women-focused initiative? That was definitely one of the suggestions that I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sangeeta. Thank you. That I see how you really feel deeply, you know, this initiative, your support, and I'm very thank you. I'd like to say that all the time you supported us. You suggested very directly, and there are very new serious initiatives, and you know we feel your help, and we will help you next year, and I hope to see you soon. I wish you a great success. I understand that it can be not very easy, you know, in this pandemic, but we will do our best to help our Indian partners. So please keep in touch with us and don't hesitate to ask any help from our side. Our next speaker is Ms. Pallavi Shroff, managing partner of India's biggest corporate law firm, Amar Chand Mangaldas. Ms. Shroff, please specify what prospects for cooperation you see in the framework of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. What are your expectations from our future project and product? You know, what do you think, how we can cooperate in the nearest future? Please, the floor is yours.
Namaste, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everybody. A big welcome to India and an invitation for all of you to come to India the next year when we have a similar conference in India. And I think it's an honor for all of us to be here today representing our countries and to meet once again all our friends from the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. And I think the inaugural meeting that we had in July has now sort of, you know, led us to doing a more detailed discussion on different topics. And I think that's a huge step forward. And I can only see this alliance moving forward as we work towards more determined goals and very specific projects amongst us. So just like several other of our countries, women constitute just about or just a little less than 50% of our population, but its participation in our workforce is fairly low. It's just about close to 16.5%. When we talk of women entrepreneurs, I think women constitute only about 13.8% of the total entrepreneurs in India. And out of that, I believe only about 16 or 17% women entrepreneurs employ people, and the rest of them are self-employed. So I would say in all, they would employ roughly around 11.2 million people, but they do contribute quite a lot to our GDP, which is something like 18% of our GDP. And as my colleagues before have mentioned the McKinsey Global Institute report, I think that sets out quite a large number that can be added to our respective global GDPs if women are given equal representation. Another interesting factor for how women entrepreneurs are sort of, you know, developing in India, most of them are in micro and small and medium enterprises. There are fewer women entrepreneurs who have actually very large corporations. That is not to say that women are not employed by large corporations to run them, but as entrepreneurs, there are mostly in micro, small, and medium enterprises. And they, of course, therefore, would have their own challenges as being micro and small enterprises. And I think it is for associations like us and the alliance like ours to sort of brainstorm as to what challenges they face. And from hearing all the previous speakers, I realized that the challenges that we women face and women entrepreneurs face are fairly similar. I think some of the challenges that we face in India are also it is that all these micro enterprises are underserved by the traditional form of financing or our financial institutions, the kind of credit they credit rating they require, or the kind of security they require, or the kind of interest they require is a challenge for most of these women enterprises. Of course, this has given rise to a huge number of microcredit enterprises in India, and they are now well regulated. We recognize them, but I think there is a lot that can be done in that area. The other big challenge I think women entrepreneurs face is probably lack of business and managerial skills. It's all self-learned on the job, dealing with each situation as it arises. They also sort of struggle with market and network connections because it is quite difficult for them to understand how can they reach their product beyond just the few cities that they are maybe today sending their products or selling their products in. The other challenges, of course, are general gender inequality, inherent bias, inequity in pay and working conditions, societal pressure, the structural pressures that exist, and care work responsibilities. And so what could be, having tried sort of understood or having made an attempt to understand what these challenges are, I think it's important what kind of interventions would be good in our countries. I think training in business and managerial skills, access to credit and finance, and equally training in finance and reading your balance sheet, how to keep accounts, technical assistance in different areas, including, I think, digital literacy, because that could be a huge, big area. And finally, mentorship. Some of us who are on the table here are actually role models in our respective countries. And I'm sure there are many more role models who can be brought to the table and experiences and mentorship programs developed. In fact, FICCI has developed such a program, and I think participation and growth of that could be quite an important issue. I think, as Dr. Sangeeta had mentioned, Indian government has also taken a number of initiatives to promote women entrepreneurship, particularly during COVID, by having introduced financial and economic packages. Even the Central Bank of India has several packages now for the women. Other packages sort of given are provision of subsidized credit, mandatory sourcing from women-led enterprises under public procurement policies, skills training, mentorship programs, microfinance, encouraging microfinance institutions, and several other things. Several state governments also have been encouraging with their own programs for how women entrepreneurship can be encouraged. There are institutions like the Small Industries Development Bank that have now setting up women-centric venture capital funds as well. So coming now to the role that I believe the BRICS Alliance can play in this endeavors that all of us are making one is to exchange of best practices. I think this has been alluded to before. I think learnings from our experiences, exchange of our experiences and what we have achieved in our respective countries could be a big way forward. This can all be done digitally, or it can be done through several institutions in each of our countries. Even the BRICS Women's Alliance can provide a network to the women in our countries for certain activities, and most of the women are in the service industry, perhaps in an informal industry. So I think this could be a big challenge. While today we are all doing this virtually, at some point, it would help people a lot more, the women a lot more, if there is actual meeting and discussions. Women entrepreneurship startups, creating an atmosphere for startups and guiding them and mentoring them through startup. So creating an atmosphere for women to start up. In fact, the Niti Aayog, which is the planning ministry, sort of the center in our country, has also set up a platform for women who want to go into the startup business and how and what can be done. So I think maybe we could consider something like a BRICS startup bridge, or an association or group creating an atmosphere and bringing the best that each of our countries have done. I think another area that I see cooperation in is to create an online training academy, which Dr. Sangeeta has already mentioned. and of course collaborating. And I would invite all the countries to participate and draw inspiration from the greater 50% initiative that FICCI has taken and Sangeeta has quite elaborately mentioned about. Perhaps we could mention in the first meeting as well, consider BRICS awards for women-friendly corporates, and maybe also do some sort of a policy advocacy for strengthening women's entrepreneurship. There are, of course, several policy recommendations, but I think given a shortage of time, I'm just going to sort of narrate them, not get deeper into it. Create women entrepreneurship centers, have an MSME toolkit for women. It's like a resource center for women, and creation, as Sangeeta said, the joint risk capital funds, public procurement policy. Again, it will be a government initiative, but we could ask and sort of, persuade our respective governments to do that. And, how can we encourage some sort of a social participation? This is indeed a long list, but I think it could only set the roadmap for this alliance to take up one project at a time, perhaps, and move forward. With that, I look forward to seeing all of you in India next year, and namaste.
Спасибо большое. Я позволю себе прокомментировать выступление наших индийских партнеров. Нормально перевод работает, да, все хорошо? Я хотела бы уточнить, у нас сегодня на нашей сессии представитель Министерства экономического развития Наталья Николаевна Стригунова. И здесь я хотела бы подчеркнуть, что то, что было сегодня предложено нашими партнерами, нашими индийскими коллегами, бразильскими, я думаю, впереди наши африканские партнеры и китайские тоже предложат очень конкретные и очень четко сформулированные инициативы. Я попрошу после нашего мероприятия их прислать нам, направить в письменном виде, для того, чтобы мы могли уже передать нашим министерствам, нашим государственным органам, для того, чтобы согласовать действительно совместную здесь повестку, совместные направления работы и уже передать председательство нашим индийским коллегам. Поэтому я еще раз позволю себе поблагодарить за очень четкие предложения, очень сформулированные, и за вашу готовность работать, причем, как у нас в России говорят, с места в карьер. So right here, right now, we can start our work right here, right now. So it is my pleasure. Yes, now I can switch to English. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Malu, Director in China Resources Group. Dear Ms. Ma, please indicate what areas of cooperation the Chinese chapter members are particularly interested in. And could you please share with us the latest development they made in these areas? Please specify what recommendation does the Chinese chapter have for strengthening women entrepreneurship in BRICS countries. Please, Ms. Ma, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Hello, everyone. My name is Malu. I am the chairperson of the Chinese chapter of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. I would like to express my gratitude to this BRICS Business Forum for setting up a specific session for WBA. We highly agree to the theme of this WBA session. Early this month, at a high-level meeting on the 25th anniversary of the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing, China President Xi said that women are creators of human civilization and the drivers of social progress, and they have made extraordinary achievements across all fields of endeavor. In particular, at the height of China's battle against the COVID-19, more than 40,000 health workers from across the country rushed to Hubei province, which was the hardest hit by the virus, and 2/3 of them are women. History and the present have fully demonstrated that women can not only make a difference at work, but also take on responsibilities at critical moments. Considering the great challenge we face, WBA is such an innovative platform to help women, especially women entrepreneurs in BRICS countries, to achieve great success. On May 29, China appointed 5 women business leaders as the first members of the Chinese chapter of WBA. The Chinese chapter are from diversified and representative industrial background. Alibaba is the leading internet company around the world. Huawei is a global provider of information and communication infrastructure and intelligent terminals. Green Electric Appliance is the largest residential air conditioner maker in the world. DHgate.com is a B2B e-commerce website for SMEs doing international business. China Resources Group is a Fortune 500 company with diversified businesses in consumer, health, property development, energy, technology, and finance. As mentioned in WBA's first meeting, we highly agree to the future cooperation areas suggested by Russia, which are digital economics, healthcare, tourism, food industry, creative economy, and other branches. Based on the diversified background of Chinese chapter member companies, we would like to propose WBA national chapters to cooperate in the following areas. The first area for cooperation is healthcare. We suggest strengthening anti-epidemic cooperation between hospitals and medical institutions through online platforms. In particular, we call on countries to take care of women's health and create conditions for women to balance family and career. My company, China Resources Group, we have a medical group, operates and manages more than 170 medical institutions. We could provide point-to-point support for medical professionals, hospitals, and medical supplies. The second area is digital economy. We suggest enhancing cooperation in sectors such as e-commerce, mobile payment, and sharing economy to empower BRICS women in digital age. Our member company, Alibaba, has already had AliExpress, a B2B platform for international trade in Russia. Alibaba will promote more and more cross-border e-commerce through platforms like AliExpress. The third area is technology training. We suggest providing professional skills training for BRICS women to improve their employment prospects in the coming age of 5G and IoT. Our member company, Huawei, has invested heavily in the development and training of ICT talents, with the particular emphasis on the participation and the promotion of female employees. The fourth area is advanced manufacturing. We suggest including female SMEs in global value-added chains by way of expanding international sales network and making direct investment at the right time. Our member company, GREE, has extensive cooperation operations in BRICS countries, providing high-quality GREE equipment and services. GREE has been actively providing employment opportunities for women. The fifth area is consumer. We suggest introduce good products from BRICS countries to promising markets through online portal and physical channels. For example, my company, China Resources, has the #1 supermarket chain in China with over 3,000 physical stores. It could be a good channel. At the same time, Alibaba and DHgate.com could also help more BRICS entrepreneurs and small and micro enterprises owners enter China market. To conclude, the Chinese chapter is looking forward to strengthening the cooperation and sharing experiences between national chapters, we would like to launch pilot projects and achieve results in near future. WBA is brand new platform. So I have some suggestions about WBA's priorities. These priorities may include: first, complete the signing of the declaration and establishment of the BRICS Women Business Alliance. After signing of the declaration, the national chapters should strengthen publicity and continue to expand the social influence of WBA. Second, set up working groups for major cooperation area. Each working group should have a clear and annual work plan and clear and specific deliverables. Third, build an online portal for communication. On this portal, WBA members can distribute news, share information, study online courses, offer business opportunities, and so on. This portal could also link with other influential websites. Fourth, hold an all-WBA annual event to regularly bring national chapter members together. I suggest members of the national chapters should build up a WBA business network first. Taking this opportunity, we would like to ask large companies, especially the BBC, to support WBA activities, to include more female SMEs into value-added chain, and to facilitate women access to resources and capital as corporate social responsibilities. Finally, I do hope let's join hands and make our great efforts for a beautiful and bright BRICS future. That's my words. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your speech, Ms. Ma. I also noted very, important issues you mentioned. For example, you mentioned about KPI for our working group, and I think that this should be one of the measures of how we work. This KPI. So we need to do this till this year, and the result of our work will be, the final recommendation of BRICS Business Women Alliance, and also the common project, as you also mentioned. So we are here and we are the representative from business side. And I think our common goal is to have this common project, between Chinese business, Indian and Russian and South Africa and Brazil. Thank you very much. I noted all you mentioned, and after this session, we will send you our minutes of meeting and all your recommendation and all the initiative you presented today. Please also don't hesitate to send us, because we will combine and we will match everything, and we'll give you back, and we hope also that this year we will sign the declaration during the summit. It's the 17th of November. So I will let you know a little bit later when the program of the summit will be established. So don't worry. So we will let you know. Now I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Diane Wong, founder and CEO of DHgate, Chinese B2B and B2C cross-border e-commerce marketplace. Dear Ms. Wong, what do you think is critical to promote innovation and technological development for women of BRICS? What specific initiative have you launched to inspire and help women? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's my pleasure to be here to attend this very important forum. I think we're now living in the best golden age of women for decades. Compared with other solutions, digitalization, particularly in this crisis, is the most vital tool to empower women in BRICS. As we all agree, digitalization creates an equal competition environment for us, reduces the entry barrier dramatically, and helps women quickly tap into many beneficial opportunities by transforming their businesses. Actually, we heard a lot of good suggestions from previous speakers regarding how important digitalization means to us. Let me give you one example. In a small village in southern China, all young generation has rushed to top-tier cities for work. Only the senior people, particularly women, was left there. The village's principal set up e-commerce education for all villagers every evening, from basic computer skills to online store operation. Finally, this small town has become a well-known e-commerce hub in China. Those senior women villagers engaged in online sales of farm produce and local specialties have earned higher incomes than their children in the cities. This kind of education has successfully helped the marginal groups transform and adapt to faster changing markets. It can equally benefit everyone, including minorities, to improve their lives. So importantly, women are inclusively benefited from the new economy, even though they live in rural areas with fewer resources than in cities. But more work remains to be done, especially in this pandemic. It has had a devastating effect on gender equality, particularly in terms of the gender digital divide. Women, girls, and business owners by women have been particularly impacted. They have fewer resources in technology products, access and control, education, training, and skills development. So women are now at the crossroads. We have called for collaborative support on women to achieve digital equity and inclusive growth in APEC, G20, and other channels. For example, since 2016, we have launched the APEC Women Connect program to support women in digitalization. Now we must get the public and the private sectors on the table, designing the most suitable digital solutions to help all women in BRICS. And then I can share with you some of the initiatives we have to inspire and help women in BRICS. We plan to launch 2 digital capacity building projects to encourage women entrepreneurship and empower women-led businesses in BRICS. Firstly, the Women Connect Entrepreneurship Competition. It's an international competition to accelerate women-led startups in cross-border e-commerce. We aim to dig out and empower the best entrepreneurs to encourage more women to apply digital solutions in their businesses. Together with this competition, we will launch Women Connect Virtual Seminar. It's a thought leadership summit for women in the business community. Topics cover the most critical areas, including forefront information of cross-border e-commerce, including the best practices under the crisis, including global supply chain resilience and e-learning. It will bring together global influencers, entrepreneurs, and executives on an international stage to inspire girls and women. Secondly, CBAT, Cross-Border E-Commerce Training Program. Actually, it's a comprehensive capacity building program designed for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, women startups, and young girls in this business. This program has successfully trained over 10,000 MIS, women entrepreneurs, and policymakers across over 50 economies, and has been recognized and endorsed by UN, APEC, and G20. It has been included in the report to APEC economic leaders for 5 consecutive years by APEC Business Advisory Council as annual key policy recommendations. Again, I believe with our persistent efforts in arming them with digital tools, we will see more outstanding female entrepreneurs in BRICS to be the change we want to see. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Wong. You know, I'm really impressed, you know, the preparation for today's session, really. And I tell this word, you know, from my heart, because, you know, I note every suggestion, and my colleague from Ministry of Economic and Investment would like to say the one word. You know, maybe we can, I can give you a floor, Ms. Natalia. You wrote it that you have an initiative you would like to announce. So please, the floor is yours. You have, you know, just 1 minute because we have to continue our session, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Anna. I just wanted one brief remark regarding the award for women entrepreneurs. It was initiative of our Indian colleagues and sisters. I would like to say that we have a similar initiative in Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum for APEC Forum. We launched 5 years ago, and we make this entrepreneurs contest APEC Best Award every year. This is award for Women Entrepreneurs Project, and it will be a great pleasure for us if our colleagues support this idea in BRICS. This is sharing best experience about most effective projects, and this is a good idea for young women entrepreneurs to share best ideas about most effective projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalia. We need to continue our session. It is tremendously honored to me, really, to finally introduce our South African colleagues and give them the floor. Sorry, Miss Berta Dlamini is Group's CEO of Rito Group and President of African Women in Energy and Power Association. Dear Berta, let me once again express my sincere appreciation to you and your colleagues. I am so excited, you know, let me speak from my heart, because we were waiting. All BRICS countries, you know, India, China, and Brazil and Russia were waiting representative from South Africa. And I'm really impressed. And for me, it is tremendously honored to welcome you today, to welcome your company, to welcome all the leaders, all the women who are today with us, who will represent South Africa in BRICS Business Alliance. I'm sure that we can work very closely, and I'm sure that you have very serious, very, you know, great initiatives you can suggest, and we can work closer, you know, to continue our alliance.
Sorry,
together.
Anna, I think I lost. Hi.
Yes.
Sorry, I lost.
Yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anna, for this opportunity. My name is Bertha Dlamini, as I've been introduced. Anna, I was not sure if you had a question for me because I lost your connection for a few seconds. Or should I just proceed?
I said only, you know, only one word, you know, related to our South African partners, related to all women from South Africa who join us, and we are very welcome, you and all the ladies from South Africa, the business ladies, and the floor is yours. And I would like to ask you, what is, you know, what is your especially interest in, you know, working in our BRICS Business Alliance, Women's Alliance? So could you specify maybe areas of the cooperation for South African women, you know, you're interested in? Please, the floor is yours. You know the areas of collaboration as we talked previously with you. Could you please highlight it? Thank you.
Great. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all delegates in different time zones. We are very delighted. I would ask, please move to the next slide. We are very delighted to introduce the South African chapter of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance, established this month of October 2020, reporting to the Department of Small Business Development and supported by the Honorable Minister Khumbudzo Chabeni. The alliance is made up of women with business dexterity, business women who possess a far-reaching network of organized women businesses and industry associations with the business acumen necessary to enable us as an alliance to achieve the mission at hand, locally in South Africa and across the African continent. We are delighted to be part of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. Collectively, we believe that the 25 country representatives present a wealth of wisdom and business astuteness. Next slide, please. Literature on the nexus of African women entrepreneurs and access to finance and access to or the ability to participate in mainstream economy is sparse and somewhat inadequate. But there are some existing statistics that highlight the potential of the African female economy. Sub-Saharan Africa boasts the highest share of women entrepreneurs in the world, but they are disproportionately concentrated among self-employed rather than employers. Women in Africa make up 58% of the continent's self-employed population. Africa's female entrepreneurship rate, however, is the highest in the world. 27% of the female adult population is engaged in early stage entrepreneurial activity. This means African women are twice as likely to start a business as women elsewhere in the world. However, women-owned businesses are particularly vulnerable to external shocks as they are disproportionately informal and operate in less profitable sectors. This means as the BRICS Women's Business Alliance, we have a fundamental responsibility and opportunity to create the right platforms to shift women entrepreneurs to higher return activities. Africa represents a vast reservoir of entrepreneurial potential, talent and resilience that can ignite industrial activity and anchor a path for sustainable economic recovery post-COVID-19. The African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the largest trade area by the number of participating countries, has the potential to increase Africa's output by $29 trillion by the year 2050, and an estimated $4.2 trillion in business-to-business trade. Small and medium enterprises are now the biggest formal employers in sub-Saharan Africa and will undoubtedly be key in stimulating job creation as part of our recovery from the impact of the pandemic. And there are more statistics that highlight the breadth and the depth of the female economy on the continent and globally. These statistics by no means seek to underplay the specific negative social and economic impact of COVID-19 that is so visible in developing countries. What the statistics do, colleagues, is to highlight the potential of the female economy globally and how through mutually beneficial collaborative programs within the BRICS community, we can change the face of women entrepreneurship on the continent with member states within the community. Next slide, please. The South African chapter aims to align its focus areas and areas of collaboration with BRICS member states to the South African Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan in order to take advantage of the immediate short to medium-term opportunities available to women entrepreneurs. We will dutifully align the ambitions of the South African Freedom Charter, the National Development Plan, and those of Africa's Agenda 2063. Given this opportunity, we aim to collaborate in industry sectors that will unlock value-adding opportunities for women entrepreneurs within the BRICS community and across the continent, as highlighted on this very slide. Next slide, please. When we look at growth, collaboration for growth and sustainability, we note that the World Economic Forum's report on global gender gap, which was released this year, states that 4 of the top performing countries in economic participation for women come from sub-Saharan Africa. Yet most women businesses in Africa remain stuck at micro level. To ensure that our economic recovery from COVID-19 pandemic is inclusive, we should prioritize the development of small, medium enterprises and use them as flywheels to create equality on the continent. And thus our multilateral collaborative initiatives should enable the following for entrepreneurs: access to market, access to technology, access to finance, access to skills development, access to networks, and to credible market information. Next slide, please. When we talk about aligning our areas of collaboration with our economic reconstruction and recovery plan, we also note that our plan emphasizes on public-private partnerships. The constrained government fiscal space that we are currently experiencing as a result of the negative impact of the pandemic means that such infrastructure projects and programs will be funded from the debt capital market. In this area, we'll note that the World Bank's Public-Private Partnerships Legal Resources Center reports that multinational development banks, as well as bilateral and national development banks, and many leading development organizations have a growing commitment to finance and support infrastructure projects and programs that incorporate gender considerations. This presents a profound opportunity for BRICS member states to collaborate on access to market and finance initiatives to advance gender mainstreaming in economic sectors targeted for post-COVID-19 recovery. Next slide, please. As we embrace the 4th industrial revolution innovations, new value chains emerge, new value chains are created, offering the opportunity to embed women's participation at ground zero. This affords the BRICS community a platform for collaboration and cooperation in areas such as e-commerce, digital health solutions, infrastructure development, as mentioned earlier, fintech innovations, as seen how on the continent and globally, we moved from cash exchange, which was flagged by the World Health Organization as a conduit for passing the coronavirus, to mobile payment solutions. And that was an indication of the growth of solutions in fintech. We also look at now, it affords us the opportunity to look at ways to boost local manufacturing. For examples in areas such as clothing, leather, textile, and light industries. We therefore need to reimagine and rethink trade relations and multilateral collaborations to address how we solve the connectivity gap and create opportunities for women and girls to be part of a more inclusive digital world. How we provide access to digital technologies that allow Africa's women to benefit fully from the goods, services, and capital available across online markets. How we leverage emerging technologies and business models to remove long-standing barriers to women's economic participation in all our markets. Next slide, please. So as we contemplate increased cooperation and collaboration to realize the female economic dividend within the BRICS community, and in working with all our structures, the design of our collaborative trade initiatives must determine how policy implementation can promote and elevate women entrepreneurship, how we can overcome the funding gap, and how we can strengthen corporate governance and legal frameworks to guide women entrepreneurs onto the international scene, as some of our colleagues have already highlighted and shared in their presentation. Therefore, our philosophy is to connect, to collaborate, to enable and showcase success in our multilateral collaborative initiatives. We can create economic value for our respective markets through mutually beneficial multilateral programs in those areas that we have already highlighted that seek to help our countries recover from the impact of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Berta. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your continuous support. And thank you for the cooperation from South Africa partners. I would like to give the floor our next speaker, Ms. Ipelang Mkari, CEO of Matseng Investment Holdings. Dear Ms. Mkari, we are very glad to welcome you here. Please specify how you see the future cooperation within the BRICS Business Women Alliance. What is our most important, and what is the most important, especially for South African female entrepreneurs in trade partnership with other BRICS countries? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Anna. It is indeed a real pleasure for myself and my colleague, Ms. Bertha Dlamini, to be here with yourselves. And so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all globally. The key factor that sets businesses apart from one another is opportunity. And in such an economically divided world, we should not take lightly the endless struggles waged by women business leaders in the world of highly competitive business environments. Whether in the factory lines, production sites, boardrooms, and stock exchanges in South Africa or any of the BRICS nations, these strong-willed business leaders inspire us at BRICS WBA to wake up every day, dust ourselves off, and brace ourselves for the economic battles of our time. Next slide, please. As South Africa emerges from the destitution of COVID-19, as has been shared by so many of our speakers this morning, we are better placed to draw on the national, continental, and international experience and research specifically focused on women. In South Africa, the National Income Dynamics Study, NIDS, Coronavirus Rapid Mobile Survey, CRAM, outlined that more than 60% of the COVID-19 related job losses were felt amongst women in South Africa. The impact of unemployment, the devastation of major financial losses, and the related socioeconomic impacts have been exceptionally challenging for women entrepreneurs. But colleagues, whilst COVID has outlined the stark inequalities, the greatest and possibly most urgent opportunity is the redevelopment of critical social infrastructure nationally. And ours is really, as WBA, to focus on access to economic participation of women entrepreneurs. This will be our singular focus. The South African economic, political, and business environment has been defined by very low and declining growth rates, very high unemployment, particularly amongst the youth, increasing levels of collusion and fraudulent activity in the private sector, high levels of state capture and corruption in private sector, SOEs, and public sector, and declining support from international ratings agencies and big business. And the impact of COVID has worsened this socioeconomic reality. Next slide. Our President, Cyril Ramaphosa, has recently presented a very clear and instructive reconstruction and recovery plan for the nation. BRICS WBA intends to leverage this plan for the acceleration of women entrepreneurs in South Africa. South Africa is ready and open for business. The 4 key pillars, as you can see on the screen, of this plan will be reform, job stimulation, infrastructure development, and obviously empowerment. And the enablers of this particular plan will be the development of a new social compact, the focus on skills development, responding to the new normal, driven and led by macroeconomic policies. The implementation plan intersects between all of these identified industries, as you can see on the screen, which will focus on the reconstruction and recovery plan of the following key areas. Energy security, right in the lead, with an industrial focus on rebuilding our industrial base, mass public employment, infrastructure development as per our National Development Plan 2030, food security, tourism, green economy, and the macro interventions. Naturally, key to BRICS WBA is the focus of exposing and integrating women entrepreneurs in these implementation plans of the state. In 2016-17, women entrepreneurship rates in sub-Saharan Africa were the highest in the world. And according to a report at the time, which stated that women's entrepreneurial activity is increasing globally. The World Bank Group CEO of 2017, Ms. Kristalina Georgieva, states, and I quote, "What we know is that the women in Africa are more likely to be entrepreneurs, but they face more obstacles than men to create and run their businesses," close quote. Sub-Saharan Africa, according to the GEMS report of 2016, leads the way with its female entrepreneurship rates the highest globally. 27% of the female adult population is engaged in early stage entrepreneurial activity. Next slide. But as we face the African dividend, we look towards the continent. Any way that you slice it, from what we can tell, ladies, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a very good deal. After 10 years since the great financial crisis, talking about Africa rising, here we stand with a substantive policy mandate to back up our intention, to reduce the barriers to trade amongst African countries and improve the integration of our economy significantly. Tabled in 2012 and fiercely negotiated over the 6 years since, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, AfTA, was legislated as a landmark agreement amongst 54, then, now 55 African countries, to create a single trade market for goods and services. This is the largest trade deal to have been effected since the establishment of WTO. With 1.2 billion citizens on this African continent, estimates of impact on our continental economy place us somewhere between $2 and $3 trillion in GDP. The intention, therefore, is to remove tariffs on 90% of all goods traded on the continent. And while negotiations do continue on exactly which of these goods these shall be, dependent obviously on each country, the commitment to liberalizing services and goods is a significant one in the quest for African interdependence over external dependence. The main objectives, therefore, of AfTA are to create a single continental market of goods and services with free movement of business people and investments, and so pave a path to accelerating the establishment of a continent-wide customs union. It will also expand intra-African trade through better harmonization and coordination of trade liberalization and facilitation across Africa in general. Next slide. For private sector, which is where millions of women operate, this is especially powerful, as AfTA is expected to enhance competitiveness and disrupt large incumbent operators at the industry and enterprise level, providing opportunities for scale production, continental market access, and better reallocation of resources, not least of all, capital, finance, and labor. Next slide. In Africa, private sector is arguably the biggest engine for sustainable growth and development, job creation, and poverty alleviation. Private sector accounts for 80% of the total production, 2/3 of investment, and 3/4 of credit, and employs 90% of the working age population on this continent. In addition, 90% of firms within the African private sector are in fact in small, medium enterprises, not so dissimilar to all the content that's been shared by all the women today. These businesses' participation in cross-border trade is limited, however, by tariffs, non-tariff barriers, which include complex customs and trade procedures, lack of access to finance, high transportation costs, and lack of access to information, just amongst others. So despite a decade of revived African self-confidence, ladies, we find ourselves struggling with interconnectivity. Intra-regional trade comprises just 16 to 20% of our total trade, whilst foreign direct investment is slightly worse at less than 10% of wealth spread amongst our economies. It is quite strange, these statistics, because they're quite confusing in the face of our demographic dividend that we boast and the natural endowment that we feast off. Next slide. The UN Economic Commission for Africa expects that AfTA will benefit our region greatly, and particularly focusing on women, by increasing intra-African trade by 52% by 2022, with industrial exports seeing the biggest gains. Furthermore, I think that what we must notice is that the benefits to be gleaned from a more cohesive regional market include three of the following factors. Firstly, export diversification. Amongst some of our biggest challenges in Africa is the reliance on our natural endowment given by each country. A lack of economic complexity leaves countries vulnerable to external commodity price shocks. For instance, in Zambia, we rely far too much on copper, and in South Africa and Zimbabwe, relying a lot on platinum. So essentially, an increased level of attention to what broad range of products our neighbors need and could buy from us to assist to navigate what else we could make and sell becomes very important. Small businesses where many, many women sit already takes full advantage of this with localized and experienced knowledge of home markets and demand. Most prevalently, we see this in the informal sector. The AfTA presents an opportunity to fund and formalize businesses that dominate the private sector already. Larger markets naturally attract more FDI, but with cross-border investment encouraged, we can welcome the participation of BRICS countries and support without being dependent on them. More interconnectivity tends to generate greater regional cooperation and peace, which in turn makes for far more stable operating environments. Next slide. In assessing the opportunity to extract real value from AfTA and how we'll be able to generate economic growth and the acceleration of women entrepreneurship, a couple of key points become very, very prevalent. The first being goods mobility. The liberalization of goods simply being the central tenet of AfTA is simply removing tariffs from 90% of the traded goods on the continent. Secondly, services mobility. Similarly to goods mobility, speaks to the parity of pricing of services, more specifically, the pricing of expertise. Human mobility, which naturally speaks to the movement of humans as a market, not as a business input. In other words, bringing customers and investors to our economic opportunities. Open borders and open skies. And lastly, capital mobility. Being fully able to take ownership of the benefits of AfTA requires us as Africans to be able to move investments and trade amongst one another efficiently and at the right prices, ladies. So cross-regional foreign direct investment amongst African countries, as I've noted, whilst it's very poorly integrated with less than 10% of total FDI, what we see is that where goods and services tend to be constrained by infrastructure and logistics, capital and financial flow is often limited by structural and regulatory impediments. Next slide. What this really does show for us is that with all these opportunities for women and the growth of entrepreneurship, there are a plurality of challenges which need real responses. Trade is key, but harmonization is paramount. Open skies, seas, rail, and road are critical as current movement in our continent and in our country is expensive and inefficient. Open borders are naturally important for a smoother marketplace and harmonizing of investment and prudential guidelines. And ladies, this being our inaugural presentation to yourselves as South Africa, we want to close by saying, next slide, please, we are open for business with you, BRICS colleagues. Our singular focus as the WBA chapter in South Africa is to focus on women entrepreneurship. The acceleration and development will be based on the following tenets. A, symbiotic business relationships, ensuring that the South African and African women, as I've described, their environment and their entrepreneurs and their agendas are central, focusing on the identified sectors as outlined, and mutually beneficial trade relations. We look forward to and are ready to forge trade partnerships with each of the BRICS teams. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mkari. With your speech, we should conclude our session, our BRICS Business Alliance session. And while preparing my speech for today, I point some very deep insights, some sentences I would like to say you today. We live through a very important moment in our country's history. And I know that all of us walk around the clock to create the better future for our children. And I believe that together we will make a great impact, you know, and our magnitude of our action will be significant for every of us. Well, what we can do, in my opinion, is we have to mobilize girls, our daughters, and women to see their value as leaders and to support them in their efforts. Continue to be a role model, as a lot of women today are needed, and to remind women that their involvement matters. They need to be more active in their communities and in their local government. I don't know. It is just imperative. And what can we do? Can we empower one another? I think definitely. And so what we have to do, I think we have to start do it right now and without doubt. And I think that we can start today all together. Thank you. Thank you for all of you. Thank you very much for your involvement. Thank you very much for your active participation. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you very much that very deep inside you announced, you say us today very, very emotional, you give us very emotional presentation. And I believe that together we will make, a better future really for our sons, for our daughters, for our family. And I'd like to say thank you, all of you. I'm very hope to see you very soon. And as you know, we are not defining the exactly date, but we suppose that this bill 2nd or 3rd of November, we would like to gather together 25 women, BRICS Business Alliance women, the final event of our presidents, with alliance members. So I'm very welcome all of you. Thank you very much once again. And I'd like to thank especially Ms. Mabuza. I hear you. You are today with us. And I read your comments in the chat. Thank you very much for your support. This is my heart from Russia to our South African partner. Thank you very much, all the colleagues who join us today. And take care. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
До свидания.